Fuck yeah, this is a great setup. Oh my god. Okay, good.
To be a woman gone wild means to live beyond the conditioning and the constructs of the world we once knew, and be the woman who has broken free of the chains that once contained her. At a rapid pace, the world is shifting. This change has called you into realms of divinely guided leadership and into a movement of wild women who have linked arms to fearlessly live, fearlessly lead, and fearlessly love. Where the voice that guides us expands from within, where head-led living is being replaced with a devotion to heart-led leadership and pure alignment. Every single woman is a leader. You, Queen, are a leader, which is why you arrived here. Whether you are leading yourself, your family, or your community. Whether you are single, married, a mother, an entrepreneur, a healer, or a woman with a dream, you belong here. Feminine leaders have been called to rise and stand front and center to share their voices and evoke waves of change across our planet. When a wild woman speaks, people listen. They hear her, they are moved by her, and they tell others of her. As the world revolutionizes, the foundation of this new construct lies in the strength of community. Connection and courage have already begun to form, as the cornerstones of which the pinnacle to our greatest awakening will be built. You have been called to be unafraid, to feel deeply, to lean into the nudge that continues to whisper within. Link arms with us. Rise fearlessly.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Rhonda. I'm so honored to be part of the Wild Tribe for it's been almost a year now that I've been in this community, and it has been incredible. So today I am super excited to talk to you guys about the principle of pleasure and how pleasure is actually your superpower in your business. So as Rhonda mentioned, my heart space is so excited to speak specifically to those of you that are heart-centered entrepreneurs. Those of you that are here to change the world. Those of you that listened to that wild manifesto, and like me, every time I hear it, it brings tears to my eyes, because regardless of the gender that you identify with, this movement is for everyone. This movement is for us, and it is here for us to change the world in a very meaningful way. And if that resonates with you, then my love, you have big shit to do on this planet. You have a big movement, a big mission. And the truth is, doing that the hard way isn't really going to serve you. In fact, it is going to probably burn you out, and it's going to minimize your impact. So I am here as a catalyst, as a harbinger of change, to show you that doing the thing that might surprise you a little bit, that you probably don't expect, that is so out there, that is so against what everybody tells us, what all of the masculine guidance tells us, that how to run a business and how to lead change and how to have impact in the world, all of that gets to be turned on its head literally today in this masterclass. I can't hear you, love. Good. Okay, great. Sorry. We're good. So let's keep going. I'm so excited to take you guys on this journey, because this is super, super valuable and super important for you to learn how to step into your light, to learn how to step into your power. And the most important thing here is for you to learn how to shine. And you cannot shine when you are burned out. That's just the reality of the situation. So before we go too far into it, now, if you are catching us live, I would love to see this in the comments. If you're catching this on the replay, then go ahead and drop your reflections right into the community, or you can just hold these with yourself. I will encourage you always, though, to share, because something really magical happens when we let these things out of our body, when we get them out of our 3D body and into this field and into the space. Everything changes for us, and it actually grounds it into our reality a lot more strongly. So I'm going to give you these invitations, and whether you're catching me live or whether you feel comfortable sharing in the community or both, I also want to encourage you, if you're not comfortable with either of those, put it in a journal, speak it out loud, share it with a friend. All of these reflections and every opportunity you can have to share this out into a larger audience and even just into the space is going to yield so much additional power for you. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, what do you feel in your body when you hear the word pleasure? Just take a moment to tune into that. Now, for some of you, that might feel very yummy and very delicious. And for some of you, it might be fucking terrifying. It might be scary, right? For some of you, it might be cringe. It might be gross, right? So giving yourself space to honor, what is that feeling when you hear the word pleasure? And even getting a little more curious, what is it that's showing up if you have some visuals? So going beyond the somatic now, what are the stories? What's the stuff in the mind? Do you see a picture of a delicious strawberry covered in chocolate, or a beautiful day at the beach here in Bali, like I am, or a beautiful sound, or cuddling with that perfect person, or the most delectable orgasm you've ever had where you're literally touching the face of God? What is it for you? Or is it still so contracted in the body that we can't even get to those exciting states? Whatever it is, that's okay, because we're going to alchemize it a little bit today. I'm going to teach you a few secrets on how to shift that, how to move that, how to transform that through your body. But first, we need to know where you're starting off, and we need to be willing to be completely and totally, relentlessly honest with yourself about it. Now, this is one of the things you're going to learn about my space. This is one of the things you're going to learn about being around me, because I'm here for radical self-responsibility. Because if you don't take responsibility, how on earth are you supposed to change? And you're here because you want transformation. You're not watching me live or catching me in this replay because you want your life to stay the same. There's a bunch of Netflix you could be watching if that's what you're going for. You're here because you want things to change. And in order for them to change, you need to be honest about where you're at right now. And you need to be honest with yourself moving forward. So get clear. What is your relationship to pleasure? We've now looked at how does it feel in the body? What are some stories that might be coming up? Now I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you were actually in your pleasure? What did that look like for you? When were you in that? Okay, get curious about this. Now, for some of you, and again, you can define pleasure as a delicious strawberry ice cream, playing with friends, an orgasm, a great BDSM session, whatever that means for you, you get to choose. I'm not here to define pleasure for you in that respect. But I want you to think about, when was the last time you actually let yourself have that? You know, it's funny. I had somebody, a wonderful entrepreneur that I met in Tallinn, Estonia, this summer, was messaging me the other day, and she's saying that she's having trouble with motivation. And what are my tips for motivation? Because, you know, she just got home and she hasn't been able to evolve. And I said, well, when was the last time you did something you enjoyed? And she said, oh, I don't. I work and I rest. And how many of you does that land for?
Well, Steph, I want to say, because this is something that I have often, right? And you can hear me now, yeah?
Yes.
Yay, welcome back. You know, because I think what so many of us, especially women, we get so stuck in that doingness. And you and I have been dropping in really strong lately. Like, we get in this doing this, and then we go, what do I, is this my pleasure? Or am I masking my pleasure and filling it with responsibilities or with work or things like that? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about in the comments. I think some people are saying the exact same thing.
Great. Beautiful. So they're coming up and saying things like, and actually, let me see if I can flip this so that I can read the comments. I just realized I'm on the wrong spot. There we go. Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So I can see everybody's comments now. Amazing. Yeah. And that's the thing. This is the dynamic. And when we're in Tantra, we're talking about the fusion of masculine and feminine, right? I'm classically trained in Tantra, in Taoism, in neo-shamanic sexual arts, in ancient Tantra, spiritual Tantra, Hermetic sex magic, Egyptian sex magic. You guys, I've done I've done all of it. And I have also a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, a Master's in Metaphysics, and I'm working on 2 PhDs. So I've got the whole background, and I've seen what the pieces are that fit together. And what you'll find is very interesting is that this masculine and feminine dynamic is very important when we're talking about pleasure. And Rhonda just hit the nail on the head right there. We get caught up in this momentum. We get caught up in this idea that if I just keep doing, then eventually I'll get to access pleasure as some future state, but not right now. And the invitation I want you to consider today is it possible for you to be in your pleasure in every single moment?
We all want that.
Right? Who doesn't want that?
We want that.
Who doesn't want that? Right. And this is the invitation, because we have this idea, we've been so conditioned that when we're in our masculine, when we're in our go, we cannot enjoy life. We have to be in hustle. We have to be in grind. That is not the feminine way of doing things. And now we all have masculine and feminine energy, and we all have light and dark. So in Tantra, we actually have 4 energies. And this is something I go into in much more depth, how to embody these 4 energies in my Sexual Empowerment Academy, which is one of my flagship courses that I run. So we go really deep into that in that container. But for today, I want you to know that pleasure can exist in your masculine and in your feminine. And we're going to talk about how you can actually step into enjoying that energy. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of the masculine and the importance of the feminine, because we can't be in our pleasure. We can't enjoy ourselves if we're thinking that we are wrong or bad or we're poo-pooing one of these energies. So in the comments, you guys, Debbie's saying yummy and exciting, amazing. I want to know, how do you feel about your feminine? And again, if you're catching us on the replay, just drop this in the community. How do you feel about the feminine energy? What does that feel like for you? And how do you feel about the masculine? What does that feel like for you? Just let me know. Beautiful.
You know, it's kind of fun too, Steph. I think that so many people too, they also get even confused, you know, like forever I was told, oh, you're always in your masculine, Rhonda, you're so hard, you're so this. I'm like, actually, when I learn more about the masculine and feminine energy, I'm like, I'm more so in my feminine because I just know what I want. Now there's the masculine drive side, right? But I know what I want, I have my boundaries. And often people get confused, right? I think we should talk about boundaries a bit, right? Because I think this is really what it gets twisted. People get really confused about what are the differences.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And total shivers like downloading as you were saying that too. It's amazing. We think that in a lot of cases, and this is why I wanted to pull the question. So thank you guys for your answers. Before I answered it, I didn't want to like fill the field until we had some responses in. So yeah, flow and moon and masculine feels like strength and sun, both good. Amazing. And when we were looking at things like the tarot or traditional archetypes, yes, feminine is moon, flowy, soft, right? And masculine is sun, hot, heat, action, energy. Absolutely accurate. And boundaries and discernment are feminine principles. And this is where we tend to get confused, that having boundaries, having clarity of vision, that is the feminine. The feminine knows what she wants. The masculine is who goes out and gets it. So knowing what you want, Rhonda, is absolutely feminine. However, when you're in that energy of now I'm going to go and get it, that's your masculine. And so you are identifying a very beautiful balance of those two energies.
Oh, thank you for that. Because it's like, I think that especially in society, right? We as women, we get pushed down for being too strong, right? Yeah. And then men get also, on the flip side, pushed down for being too feminine. But we both can embody both of these energies and create the most epic, unbelievable life, business, success, right? And I think this is where the bigger conversation is coming, even more so right now, because society's a little confused. Like there's all kinds of things that conversations are coming up, right? And then it's like, right, how can pleasure even dare equal success or profits, right? How do we do that as a embodied, let's say, feminine, a woman, and an embodied male or a gender, right, that identifies with either one? Sometimes we're stronger than the other, others are, less strong. But how do you take then that balance and drive it forward? Beautiful.
And this is so important for us to recognize, because as we've already kind of talked a little bit about feminine, like the moon, the receptive, the flowy, the water, right? So what's important to recognize is your receiving energy is feminine. Now, I don't care what type of body, what avatar you chose to join this earth on. I don't care what kind of genitalia you have. We all have feminine and masculine energy, and we all have a preference that is unrelated to the physical body. So for example, my preference was conditioned into me to be very in my masculine. Now, what this turned out to be is, for the majority of my life, and definitely my corporate career before I came into this space, this meant that I had a story that I needed to hustle in order to be worthy to receive. And that wasn't just related to things like money, success, profits, but also love, also respect, also reward, awards, right? So when we're talking about receiving, now here we're talking about profits, but recognize that the energy of being willing and capable and able to receive, that energy is by nature feminine. And if you do not feel safe to be in your feminine, or you have a story that your feminine can only receive once your masculine has earned it, Debbie's saying yes. Good. I'm glad this is landing. then you are never going to be in a space to receive your greatest desires. You are never, and I don't often use the word never, but here I will use it. Without learning to feel into your feminine, you will never receive the pleasure you desire, the profits you desire, the dreams you desire. Why? Because there will always be something else you must achieve before you are worthy of receiving that pleasure, that profit, that award, that accolade, that fifth house, whatever it might be.
Yeah, Steph, I think that word right there, receiving, that's the key element, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Because how you can't be in your pleasure if you're not able to receive. And so we have to have this conversation about the masculine and the feminine dynamics and how do we embody that? Do we even feel safe to receive in the first place? Because the truth is, in today's society, a lot of us don't. Right? We just don't. And I'll speak to feminine because I know as women, I'm conditioned as a female body, clearly. And therefore, I'll speak from the feminine perspective, but I know many, many other gender definitions that struggle with this as well, where the idea of receiving without having to hustle, work, or prove is just not in our reality.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because when we are, let's say we start businesses and we're CEOs or we're running the show, and then all of a sudden we forget what are the things that we really love? Like, what are the things that really bring us that joy? And if we are in, like, it's almost like guilt. I mean, it's kind of like I'm guilty for actually receiving if I'm not producing or if I'm not, right? But it's backwards. In order to produce, you've got to feel and be in your pleasure zone where you're the most excited. Let's chat about that a little bit, like where people get in that creative zone. Like so often, entrepreneurs or, business owners, they get stuck. They get stuck and they're like, why isn't it working? It's probably because you're not having fun.
Well, and just like that one individual I mentioned that I spoke with yesterday, she's like, well, I'm not motivated in my business anymore. And it's like, well, all you do is work and sleep. Who the fuck wants a life like that? It's not fun. Why are you your own worst boss? And I did this to myself when I first started my business too. I was my own worst boss. And Rhonda, you said something so beautiful that I really want everyone who's watching and experiencing this right now to drop into this word that Rhonda just mentioned. Guilt. Just feel the energy of guilt. Like, ooh, that is one of the lowest vibrational frequencies that we can be in. And I'm getting shivers again. Rhonda, I'm so glad you mentioned this because we cannot create the way that we'll talk about creation in a minute. We cannot create from a state of pleasure if we are feeling guilty about taking time to be in our pleasure. Okay?
Yeah.
So we see this.
Resonating with this too.
Yeah. Beautiful. Debbie, I see you. Debbie, Monique, I see you. Oh, yeah. The guilt. Super important. So we see this self-care theme. Right? We see people talking about self-care on Instagram and on TikTok, and they've got the nice luxurious baths and the chocolate and the wine and the candles everywhere. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. But what I want you to ask yourself is, when you're in that bath, do you actually feel good about it? Or are you feeling guilty and shaming yourself the entire fucking time? Right? The guilt leads to shame. Exactly. Brian nailed it. Right? And when we're in shame, we are in a very low vibration. This is not the purpose of being in pleasure. So it is super important for us to reframe. This is our first step. Reframe our relationship to pleasure and recognize that this is actually 1000%, not even 100% mathematically inaccurate. It is actually 1000% necessary for your success. And for your survival even. And I don't like using the word survival, but the truth is, if you really want to survive in business and not end up with adrenal fatigue and not end up with ease and not end up with cancer and not end up with depression and all of these really tough things that happen when we're dysregulated constantly. Like, pleasure is not a luxury. It is a requirement just for baseline. Okay? So we have to start changing the way that we see that and giving ourselves permission. Now, how do we do that? With little tiny baby steps, right? This is not something that I am encouraging. And this is why my Sexual Empowerment Academy, we go over 12 weeks and we take little baby steps every single day, every single week into more pleasure, more expansion, and eventually more orgasm and more creative fire, which we'll speak about in a minute. But we have to take these baby steps because we have to allow the nervous system to feel safe. You cannot be in your pleasure if your nervous system isn't feeling unsafe, dysregulated, guilt, shame. So we alchemize that through the body with just little pieces of evidence over time so that the psychology and so that our mind can say, oh, wow, this was actually awesome. Look, I took today for an ice cream and nobody died and my business didn't explode. And I actually feel kind of good about it. And I didn't instantly gain 15 pounds. Go figure, because here's a fun tip too. When you're in your pleasure, you will lose weight. You will lose inflammation. You will lose belly fat because you are alchemizing cortisol. So if you're noticing, like, especially in this area, oh man, there's a lot of heaviness there. That's literally you not being in your pleasure. So fun fact. Now let's talk about what's necessary here. Now that you've got that first step, little baby steps of pleasure, day in and day out, just little ones, and noticing, how is this going for you? What can you look for on the other side? Let's talk about that, as Rhonda mentioned, the creativity piece. Now I'm going to assume that everybody watching this video, whether you're catching me live or in the community, has a basic understanding of the chakra systems. So I'm not going to go over those, or energy centers, depending on your language preference, the energy centers in the body. Let's talk about the sacral. If you're a Joe Dispenza fan, he's going to call that energy center number 2. If you're following any of the more ancient tantric lineages, we're going to call that the sacral. If you're following the hermetic lineages, we're going to call that orange. Okay. Whichever one of those, we're talking about the one that's right below the belly button. For women, you're going to identify this is where your womb is. For men, just right below the belly button. Okay. This area, it's not an accident that the womb is here. What is the function of the womb? Literal transformation, literal birth. Like, just think about the power that that space holds, which, by the way, men have this space as well. They just do not have the physical anatomy for it. But think about the power that this space holds to literally take a soul from the ether and birth it through the body into 3D reality. And that being then changes the world. Debbie's saying birth. Exactly. Now, I have not yet had the luxury of being a mother, but I have been around many, many, many mothers and many, 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 many births. And this is the most beautiful thing that we can witness. And that is the potential of our erotic eros energy. This is the potential of working with the sacral. Now, we identify this as physical birth, but it does not need to be physical birth. This can be the birth of an idea. This can be the birth of a song. This can be the birth of a business. This can be the birth of a painting, a new voice. Literally everything. If you just take a moment to look around at the roof and the floor and the flowers and everything that's in your, the blazer, everything that's in your 3D reality. If you take a moment just to look at those things and realize every single thing in your reality right now is a result of creative life force energy moving through somebody. It is a result of this sacral energy being activated in some way. Otherwise, it literally would not be capable of existing on this 3D plane. So this is the energy that we get to deal with. Look at that laptop that you're watching this on, or the iPhone that has changed your life and revolutionized the world, right? Wow. All of this possible, A, because the person that invented it was birthed, and B, because then they birthed an idea, which is a result of a bunch of other people birthing ideas. So being in this energy, being in this sacral, which is also our pleasure, is absolutely vital to have the impact we're meant to have on this world. And for those of you that are entrepreneurs, that are unicorn entrepreneurs, your lifeblood of your impact is based on your ability to have creative ideas, right? Whether that's your next blog post, your next tweet, your next hire, your next book, right? Book right here. All of this was Rhonda's sacral energy, right? This is her motivation. This series, this live, this tribe would not exist if Rhonda had not been connected to her pleasure, because this brings pleasure for her. So we have to be willing, and we're loving this. Amazing. Thank you, guys. We have to be willing to sink into our pleasure, because without that, the creativity just doesn't come. So I want you guys, again, go ahead and share, reflect this in the comments. Those of you that are catching this on the replay, go ahead and share in the community. When was the last time you feel like you really had like one of those, wow, this is a download. This is my power. This is my new thing that's coming through. When was the last time you had something like that really birth into your body? And let me share from a personal example of what's possible here. For me, these downloads come every single day, multiple times a day. Sometimes during my pleasure practice, sometimes when I'm minding my own goddamn business in the shower. It's not always intentional. And that's the beauty, is when you embody this, this delicious frequency, this chemical elixir of your pleasure in every fucking moment, you are a channel to the divine. You are a channel to what wants to come through you. When I write, so yes, perfect, Monique, when you are actively working with your creative center, writing is a creative activity, and probably you're enjoying that, right? So you're in your pleasure. You're in your pleasure. And therefore, these things are coming through. Now, it gets to be this point where I've had to set up rules with my guides and with my being that actually, unless it's time to download this idea and unless it's time to work on it right now, just keep it back there, because I've got too many and it's almost becoming overwhelming. What an amazing problem to have in this 3D reality, to have a problem that is too many ideas, too much inspiration. Now I need to pick and choose, right? I don't know what to write or when to write it, right? Mark is saying he's had a great week of creativity and pleasure, and beautiful. Like, Mark, why was this week, share with the community if you feel comfortable, why was this week different than the weeks you've had before? What made this week special for you that you had more creativity and more pleasure in your life? And start to get curious about that. Now, I want to invite you guys, we've talked about step number 1, to bring more pleasure into your life, which is building a relationship with this energy over time, little baby steps. Now, the next step, step number 2, that I want you to consider is this idea that I don't have to be doing anything in order to be in a state of pleasure. Just let that sink in for a minute. I don't even have to be doing a bath. I don't have to be doing sex. I don't have to be doing self-pleasure. I don't have to be doing writing. Because we have this idea that I can only be in pleasure when I'm doing something that I enjoy. And this is such a beautiful fallacy that keeps us fucking stuck. Because now pleasure's inaccessible, right? How many people have time to have a nice, long, luxurious bath every week, every day? How many people have time for an hour-long pleasure session or a 3-hour sex session every day or every week? Not very many, right? I've built a life where I have prioritized these luxuries, but you might not be there yet, right? And maybe you want to be, and maybe you don't. But that doesn't mean that pleasure is inaccessible for you. What it means is we need to shift our perception of pleasure. Joe Dispenza, I've mentioned him already. He is one of my ultimate mentors. And I've learned from a lot of people, but I love Joe Dispenza's work. And he talks about, why do people want wealth? And let's bring this back. Why do I want profit? Right? We're talking here about turning pleasure into profit. Why do you want your profit? What do you do with that money? Right? You know, and some of us might go a little bit on our martyr and say, oh, I'm going to donate it. I'm going to change the world. No, fuck that. That's not 100% of what you're going to do. You're probably going to go out and buy yourself at least one Gucci purse, right? Or take your family on at least one vacation, or up level your house, right? It's amazing to have all of these heart-centered, I want to give, but you are not a martyr. And so your profit is also here for you to do something with for yourself. Joe Dispenza teaches that wealth, the purpose of achieving wealth, is because all humans want one feeling and one feeling alone. And that is freedom. And I actually challenge this, as every good student challenges their mentor at some point in their life. And I will say, I don't believe it's actually freedom that's the end root goal. I believe it's pleasure. And the reason I believe this, and I've seen this through my work with thousands of clients and in my own life as well, is because what are you going to do with that freedom? Why do you want to be free? So you can do things that bring pleasure. So you can do things that you love. So you can do things you enjoy. So you can be with the people that you love, right? So at the end of the day, our root cause for profit is pleasure. And when we look into the quantum reality, when we look into manifestation, when we look into the way that we program our reality, we know that we must have that frequency now in order to have it in the future, which means we must be in a state of pleasure right now in order for pleasure and therefore profit to show up in our lives, because they are intrinsically tied. So you absolutely must be willing to have your pleasure now, because if the whole reason you want your money is to have pleasure, then you need to be willing to have pleasure first. You need to create it now. Okay? So I want everyone just to take a moment to just close your eyes and breathe into your body. And I want you to open your mind to the last time you truly were in your pleasure. Call up that memory. Let it circulate through your body. Feel it. Feel that feeling of pleasure from whatever that memory was. Notice where you feel it and what you feel. And just hold that in your body for a moment. Got it? Okay. Now I want you to invite it to expand. So focus on where you're feeling the feeling of pleasure in your body, however that's showing up for you, and invite it to expand. Now you can do this by literally just saying, could you expand? Will you expand? Can you expand? And you can also use the tantric tools of sound, breath, touch, and movement to expand this pleasure in your being. Now, these are tools that we go very deeply into in all my meditations, in my one-on-one work, and in the Sexual Empowerment Academy. But for right now, we're just going to play with the entry level. Just invite that to expand a little bit more. And if you physically touch that area, what happens? Say you're feeling it in your heart. If you're sitting here pressing on your heart, tapping, scratching, maybe stretching, how does the feeling of pleasure evolve for you? How does it change? Where does it go? How does it move? And what happens if you bring a little sound in? Just a little bit of a roll of the voice. Then what happens? And what if you really move your body? Maybe you feel that pleasure in your sacral. Maybe you feel it in your hips. What happens if you move your body? Get up and dance, shake around. What happens if you growl? And then what happens if we breathe into it? Bring the breath in. Now inviting you just to come back into the space. Give your body a little shake. Shake that pleasure out. Or hold it and come back to the space consciously. Open your eyes and see if you can hold that feeling of pleasure while you're here and you're present with me. While you're paying attention to what I am saying. Can you do both? I bet you can. I bet it's actually not that hard. I bet you're doing it right now. And this is the beautiful thing about pleasure, is you aren't doing anything different than what you were just doing 10 minutes ago. Not really. You're still sitting or driving, or hopefully you're not driving. Whatever it is that you're doing while you're watching us either live or in the community. Your actual doingness hasn't changed. Here's what changed. You made a conscious choice to feel your pleasure. We started this conversation with me saying, what would it be like for you to feel your pleasure every single moment of every single day? This is the beginning step of how you do that. Because now you have an access point. Now you have a memory. You know what it feels like. And you've pulled that into your body. You've cultivated it and you've actually allowed it to evolve and grow. And remember, now you can do this when you're driving and you're full of road rage because somebody just cut you off. How dare they? You can access your pleasure. When your boss is losing their shit on you or an employee has not acted the way you expected to, you can be in your pleasure. When you're with your partner and they really want to have sex and you're just not feeling it, you can be in your pleasure. When you're about to do something creative and you're feeling blocked, like Rhonda mentioned, you can be in your pleasure. This is the beginning step of how we start to build a relationship. It doesn't mean we have to go full bore hedonistic and start, sleeping with everyone that walks past us and eating nothing but chocolate cake and cherries. This is not pleasure. This is actually dopamine addiction. And this is something, again, that I go into great depth on in the Sexual Empowerment Academy and in my one-on-one containers, because we need to decondition this. But for now, what I want you to know is that, as many of the comments said here, pleasure is being in the moment, but it's a specific type of being in the moment, because you can be in the moment and still be in shame and guilt, right? It is a conscious choice. It's more closely related to the energy of oxytocin, the energy of love, than it is of dopamine, which means it lasts, which means it reverberates through the body. And when we're talking about energetic frequencies, we spoke earlier about the frequency of shame and guilt being very low frequencies. Pleasure at this capacity of pleasure is above gratitude, because you can't be in this energy of pleasure without also being in gratitude. So you're shifting yourself from literally the lowest vibrational frequency to the highest, one of the highest, up there with love and up there with gratitude, all by one 5-minute practice. Patty, thank you for being here with us. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So remember that this is always a choice. No one can give it to you and no one can take it from you. This is your sovereign ability. And as a unicorn entrepreneur, as someone that is here to change the fucking world with their mission, this is your superpower because it makes you unfuckwithable. It makes you magnetic. It makes you powerful. This is your hidden opportunity. And not only that, but it makes you more fun. It makes you more receptive. It makes you more creative. And you get to call more into your life. And imagine, now this is just step one. This is what we've covered here. Imagine when we have this same practice. And what we're doing is we're intentionally cultivating sexual energy, the literal energy that births souls on this planet, into that same practice. So that when you're walking through your day, you're not just like, ooh, this is pleasurable. You're like, I'm fucking turned on. I am fucking turned on by life. I am in a place where I am being fucked by God, source, universe, whatever it is, so regularly that every single moment of my day is erotic, transcendental bliss. That's where this work will take you. That is the magnetism, that is the transformation, that is the potency that is available to you when you continue through this work. So if you're curious about that, there's a link right down below, stephaniejay.com/discover, where you can have a chat with someone on my team that will talk about where you're at right now and will take you through what is your next best step for your personal journey. Maybe it's meditations. I have many meditations that you can download for free. Maybe it's joining the Sexual Empowerment Academy. Maybe it's working one-on-one, and maybe it's something different. I have a variety of different tools because the truth is, this energy, if you haven't figured it out already, is powerful as fuck. And if not handled with the right stage and the right tools, well, we can run into some challenges. So we have a whole wealth. My team has a whole wealth of tools, no matter where you're at in your journey, no matter what your next step is. We will be able to guide you and help you through, based on where you're at right now, what your next logical step is. So if you're curious about working with this energy more, if you're ready, like I want to be in cosmic divine union with the universe for the rest of eternity. I want that magnetism. I want my pleasure, my eroticism to be walking around and just dripping juicy wet and money falling from the sky because of it. If that's the world you want to live in, then my team will teach you how to get there. So go ahead and hit that link that you're seeing down below, stephaniejay.com/discover, and we will explore and discover what that next step looks like for you.
Oh, yes, queen. Oh my goodness. I love it. I've been just sitting back and just really enjoying the space and the container that you created, right? Like,
Thank you.
I don't know about anyone else when you're, sitting here and you're watching, and depends on where you're watching from. And you can literally just feel that space shift because the container change. It was like the way that we were even receiving your information started to shift. At least it did for me here sitting in my office, right? Thank you for that, Steph. I mean, I think that this is a bigger conversation that we need to bring actually into our consciousness even more than we do, and that's what I love about these type of masterminds that we've been hosting now every single week, because our whole mission, right? Because we have, like we had mentioned, Steph is actually in our book series, Women Gone Wild. So we're in the Wild series now, and Wealth, Redefining Wealth is this book. We've got a number of our authors here, and let everyone know if you're an author here. But Steph is in the Intuition book, and you can imagine why she's writing a chapter in our Intuition book. Steph, did you talk about this in the Intuition book that's going to be launched next June?
I did not. That'll be in the next one. So in my chapter in the Intuition book is actually about the darker side of intuition, and where we have to learn how to alchemize the pieces of our intuition that we are afraid to honor. and the harder pieces of that. So it is a little bit, because when we talk about sex, we have to talk about death, birth, transmutation. So it's definitely got that scorpionic energy to it, but less on the pleasure side, which is funny because what I do say is my brand is about pleasure. Why am I talking to you about death and rebirth and the darker side of things? But that was the message that wanted to come through. And as a embodiment of this principle, of the pleasure principle, and of my own eros, I allow what needs to come through to come through. And I don't let my 3D ego mind say, no, that's the wrong story. If this is what wants to birth, I let it birth, baby. And so that's what's in the book.
Oh, I love it. Well, I mean, this is what is so beautiful, is that especially as we begin to recognize or grow, even in our own self, the message is there, but it always tends to shift. Or we go, okay, here's the foundation of where I want to go. And I think this is what I love about the way the book series is kind of rolling out. It's like, the first conversation was just about women sharing each other's, our stories. Then it's like, okay, now let's talk about how we're redefining wealth. Now it's the intuition side. Like, how are we pulling from our intuition, right? And I think now, Steph, where you're leading, it's like literally going into the next phase, which is leadership, right?
Yep.
And then embracing all of our diversity, because that wild is what embraces a full wild woman, and you embrace it so well and embody it that I'm always so honored to sit on this side of the screen, or you're over here on the other side of the office, yeah, and just have these conversations. So I know a lot of people are watching this, and certainly we have opportunities for you. If you're in our wildtribe.live, that's where we're going to talk about every single week. We're going to get invited to these live masterminds that we host. You're going to get to meet different authors and other experts inside of this wild woman kind of universe. And we're going to come here live every single week. So we want you to join us. We also are opening up the application to become an author. If that's something that you're like, wow, I want to be in a community like this, and I want to share my story, we want to give you that opportunity to do that as well, and join us inside and be part of it. And there's a link there as well if you want to fill out an application to have that conversation. However, I think, Stephanie, and let's give you all a little bit of an opportunity. If there's any other questions you might have, I love this. Thank you, Debbie Jane Harris, for, constantly reminding us, right? It's like, it is the true power that we have within ourselves, and that conditioning that takes place around the world, we tend to lean into those boxes.
Correct.
And when we have these conversations, it reminds us, right, to get out of the box and into what we really want,
Yeah, and one thing that's coming through for me there that, when you get more involved in my space, you will know that as much as I'm sitting here being this like very embodied feminine energy, I've got some fucking collie to me, and I will call you on your shit. So one of the things that's coming through really strongly for me right now on this is I want everyone just to remember it's called the 1% for a reason. Right? If you're here, you are a unicorn entrepreneur. You don't want to be a unicorn entrepreneur that's 50%, that's at the 50%. You want it, if you're the unicorn entrepreneur, you want to be in the 1%. And it's called the 1% for a reason. It's not the 99%. You have to be willing to do things that nobody else is willing to do. And we think that means hustle harder. We think that means somehow magically create 26 hours in a day and create a time machine instead of 24. But that's what everybody else is doing. That's what the 99% thinks. So your superpower is in remembering that the 1% is doing it differently, and they're leaning into their pleasure as their superpower.
Yeah, who's feeling that, right? Because that's really where the magic is at, is going, okay, how do I do things differently than others, right? Because it is there's a long gap between 1 and 99%, right? It's actually, it sounds only, it's just 1%. Well, that's only 1% of the population. So how do you look at what is it that I am and what I want? And how do we break ourselves from that? I mean, this is where it's about literally embodying your brand and developing a brand that is so you, that it's not about your services, right? It's not about your products. And it's interesting too, Steph, I've been really having a lot of that transition phase, right? Because I run a company, right? The branding agency, right? And then I leaned heavily just into Women Gone Wild. You said this earlier. It's like, this is where my pleasure zone is. This is where I'm so excited. What can we do next? What can we build for Women Gone Wild? What could we, like, what is possible? One of our amazing authors, Barbie Layton, always says, what is possible?
Yeah.
How do we make this happen? And like next year for our intuition book launch, we're going to Sedona.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Right? But it's like most people can't think that way because they're in that doing this so often that they're just saying, okay, this is what I do, this is what I serve, this is what I have to tell life to make money. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if, right? We could just fully.
What if you could open to support too, right? Like, for example, I know that, right? You're not planning that by yourself 100%, right? We have support, we have experts, we have movers and shakers. And this has been something on my journey too, is like easing into opening to support and trusting that they can also carry the torch of this vision, this mission, and that they're just as in it as I am. And that requires me to be an even larger embodiment of my truth as an entrepreneur, because they will entrain to me or I will entrain to them. So I need to be the root. I need to be the channel that pulls them into my field.
Yeah. And when you are fully embodying not only what you are and what your pleasure is, you bring in more of that. So if we're fighting and we're bringing, it's like we literally repel the pleasure from even coming into our life, right? Because we turn it into pain.
Yeah. And then you're repelling your profit, you're repelling your creativity, you're repelling your opportunity, and you're calling in people that don't serve you either. You might, I've dealt with a lot of individuals that have a lot of trauma around hiring, especially unicorn entrepreneurs that have so much trauma around hiring because they've hired people that have embezzled from them, that have taken advantage from them, right? That have not honored their mission. And all of this is a mirror to what we feel we are worthy to receive. And this is why pleasure is so powerful. We talked earlier on about the importance of receiving and being willing to receive deeply, fully, and completely without having to give. And it's so important when we're talking about expanding our team that we are willing to receive people that are full body fuck yeses. And per your point, Rhonda, earlier, vision and discernment, that feminine principle, saying no if they are not that, right? Yes. So being willing to receive, but also being clear about what it is I would like to receive and not accepting less.
I'd like to open this up to the group because that alone, and Steph and I have been having some really deep conversations, right? Because, it's the nature of when you are a unicorn entrepreneur and you have this big vision and you go, boom, you're way up at the 1%. And then you're all of a sudden like, wait, but not everyone might be seeing it, right? Or not everyone is there with you. And sometimes it's easy to fall in those traps of like, but why? And then it's almost like you block yourself from receiving even that growth. And it's actually okay to elevate. It's okay to shift into a new energy of receiving at a different level. And I know this for a fact. One of our other authors, we were having this conversation, and she's like, I'm making big shifts, huge shifts. And there's people in my company, there's people in my space that just no longer are in support of those shifts. And that has to change. And her and I both had this conversation because I've also done the same. Like I've let a number of people go, not because they're bad people, just because it wasn't aligned with the next level. Like there's a next level of 1%, because the 1% is getting, right? It's not lonely. I think someone else just said this the other day. It's not lonely at the top. It's just too crowded at the bottom.
Correct.
Right? So if we are on that striving path of not only giving back bigger impact to the world, like literally, truly just being our full selves, we have to know that it's okay for someone else to actually, move on or not come forward, or you keep going. And this is actually a really good example. I remember like there's, I think it was Wayne Dyer, and he said it's lonely on the, something on the, it wasn't the 1%, it was like on the extra mile, right? It can get lonely on the, however, your loneliness is because you're actually not fully in love with yourself right there in that moment, because you're not alone, right? If you feel lonely, it's because you actually are not fully embodying the message and the movement, the direction that you're taking. Because the moment you're there, I get people like Stephanie into our life and into our book, right? I get all these unbelievable women and authors that are like, yes, I'm standing with you and I'm moving with you. Because a sprinter can't look to the side to see if everyone is coming with them. They continue. That's where leadership comes in, right? Leaders keep moving forward, and if they can't hold you because it's too heavy to hold when you're charging forward. But if you bring that energy and everyone starts to come with you, now what happens? It's not lonely at the 1%. We're just bringing more people forward. So you've got to stay in that zone of, it's okay if they don't quite get it yet, or it's okay to let them be, in the back steam, because if you keep bringing steam, they're going to come forward. However, it's their choice too, right?
Yep, 100%. And that's the thing, is we have to honor that everybody has free will. And we talk about this a lot on the individual path, but we also talk about this a lot on the spiritual path, because those of you, if you're a unicorn entrepreneur, this means that you've gone through a massive personal transformation, right? And I know if you're in this space, that means that you are dedicated to your own personal evolution. And you've probably had the experience where you've had to let staff, friends, family not come with you because they just weren't ready to, and that's their free will. And maybe they come back eventually and maybe they don't, and that's all okay. And this is another reason why things like a pleasure practice, and also in the Sexual Empowerment Academy, we go through a lot of other nervous system regulation techniques. We go through a lot of emotional management techniques, because there are always, as an entrepreneur that is changing the world, there's going to be oh fuck moments. I had one 2 weeks ago. I had a major oh fuck moment where I had everything. I had all these opportunities, as I have told you guys, I've shared all these opportunities all solidified on the same day. And I went, my nervous system, like my being is excited, my spirit is excited, but my nervous system, the 3D, went, oh fuck. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can handle this. This is everything I've ever wanted, but it's coming really fast and it's terrifying. It's so much. And my nervous system needed to have a little bit of a like, holy shit moment, oh fuck moment. And that can happen when you're letting go of a team. That can happen when you're hiring a new team. That can happen when you're leaning into new expansions, new communities, showing up on lives, just doing anything different. At some point, you must have in your business an oh fuck moment. And knowing how to allow that to ripple through your body without compartmentalizing it, without making it wrong, without making it bad. It took me 30 minutes. I laid on my bed, I did a breath work session, and then I turned that into a self-pleasure session. After 30 minutes, I was fully embodied and back into my highest self that is creating from that place. And I wasn't suppressing the body. I wasn't making the body wrong. I wasn't stuffing down emotions. I was allowing myself to feel so fully. This is the alchemization that we talk about. Yes. And this is what is available for all of us.
Oh, I love it. It's so great. I mean, we've had such an amazing audience here today, especially if you're watching this live. Thank you for being here live. Keep joining us. We will be here every single week on Wednesday, 8:00 Eastern. If one of our authors are in the US or in Southeast Asia, like I am. Otherwise, we will be having also now calls with our European authors and our experts that come from Europe. And that'll be at their 8 p.m. in, I believe it's called ECT. And you can actually find out exactly who's joining us, who's going to be our speakers every week. If you go inside of wildtribe.live, that is our safe container. That is the new community that we're building to be involved in this energy, to align. If you are in those moments that Stephanie's been talking about, where you're not finding that pleasure moment, or those around you are not in support of you in that pleasure and you creating the life that you dream of, the life that you love, or doing something new, right? Or building a new business, right? It happens. Most of us have, and I'll tell you, my husband is here. He wasn't in support of me when I was a corporate executive 18 years ago and I quit my job. He was like, you're crazy. We've got great salaries, you know? So what I did, I aligned myself with others that had the same belief system. I went to events. I attended, well, at the time we didn't have live streams, but I was attending. I was writing, I was reading books, right, that were shifting my mindset and blocking out that fear that others were putting on me. And that's the juice. It isn't yours. It's their fear. And yes, sometimes with spouses or family members, it comes off as support, but we have to differ, right, between this actually is what I want and who I am. And so that's what we're doing now inside of Wild Tribe, bringing this energy together where you can share and you can say the things that you need to say that can't be shared on social media. You know, some of this might get slightly blocked because we're streaming all over now and we're starting to grow a community. I saw YouTube give me a flip that said there's certain language in here that shouldn't be said.
Oh, no.
But no,
social media doesn't like my natural expression. It's just, you know,
this is why we're doing this inside of Live Tribe, right? Yeah. Because you can watch this perfectly contained right now inside. We're running this through live streams, and you'll get the link every week. You get to engage with others and be part of our world. So I just want to thank you, Steph, from the bottom of my heart for the woman that you are, how you show up, your wildness. We are so excited to learn more from you, especially when the book chapter comes out. We have a retreat next June in Sedona, where our book will be in Barnes and Noble. We'll be in Sedona. You know, we'll be, you know, taking in this beautiful energy, and you're invited, which is why we'd like to have you join us inside of the Wild Tribe and be part of this movement. And it's, yes, Woman Gone Wild is the book, and it's the feminine guide to fearless living. However, the amount of men that we actually have in our group that show up every week as well. Thank you, because you can't do it just alone, and you certainly can't do it just as a woman, right? So we embody it. We welcome more men to get involved as well, because especially if you're a man that also is working with and for women, we want to learn from you. We want you to join us inside and just be part of this wild. Not only the tribe is our free unit, and then we have this universe, which is all of the beauty comes inside. We have all of the recordings from all the masterminds that we host. We've got courses, different ways for you to be an author or to participate. All of the authors are giving some of their best work, and it starts with you just saying yes. Just say yes. So thank you, Steph, for being you. And thank you for all of you that are here. Use this space to network and to learn from others and to truly give yourself that permission to have pleasure. Love what you're doing. You deserve it. And every bit of you deserves to embody that pleasure and for others to support you. All right. What do you say, Steph? Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time. And we've got a very special guest that's coming in next week. If you go inside, you'll log in, you'll see a calendar, you'll know exactly what it is, but you're going to absolutely love it. So thanks again, everyone. Don't forget to be unstoppable and stay wild.
What if your story was told to women all over the world? What if you were a best-selling author in the next book series, Women Gone Wild? Well, you have an opportunity to be part of this movement to inspire more women with your story. We are in the Wild series. Wealth book just launched. Next year in 2023, intuition, and then following is leadership and diversity. It's time for us women to come together, to support each other, and to share our wild stories. I look forward to learning more about you and hearing your wild stories so that women of the world can be connected.